Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm Katia Vani, Schools and Exams Marketing Manager, and I'm talking to you from Cambridge, Brazil's office here in São Paulo. I would like to know where you are joining from. If you use the chat box to tell us where you are joining from. Hello, Letícia. From São Paulo, great. Franca, Betim, Porto Alegre, Salvador, wow. Colina, wonderful. We are so happy to have you here. Lots of teachers have enrolled for this webinar today. This week we have been running a series of webinars since Wednesday. I'm not sure if you have had the time to be with us. Usually they are at 3 in the afternoon, but we knew that Friday is usually the day when teachers have more time for webinars. So that's why we have so many today, and we are very glad for that. Can you please move the slides for me? Right, so yesterday we had Laura Sigsworth, and if you didn't have the chance to watch this webinar for pre-primary learners, we have already uploaded the recording in the Cambridge Brazil YouTube channel. Today we are having Annie Robinson, and for next week we are going to have several webinars on teaching teenagers. Please don't miss them. And we are going to have one primary webinar with Herbert Urta too next week, right? So please stay in touch. If you don't follow us yet on social media, please follow us, especially in Instagram channel. If we move one more slide. Right. You have all the information there. We've been communicating a lot via Instagram, so don't miss the chance. A little bit of housekeeping before we begin. If you have questions for Anne, please send them in the Q&A tool. By the end of this presentation in the chat box, you will see a link to a feedback form, and at the end of the feedback, you'll find a link to download your certificate. This webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be uploaded in Cambridge Brazil YouTube channel. So now we have the pleasure and the privilege of having Anne Robinson here with us. Hello, Anne, are you there?
I am indeed. Hello.
Great. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Anne has been teaching young learners, teens, and adults for more than 25 years. She's based in Spain, and she's a regular speaker and trainer at conferences around the world. So welcome, Annie. I hand over to you.
Thank you, Katia. And good evening from Santander in the north of Spain, which is where I'm connecting with you. I know for you it's good afternoon, so good afternoon and good evening. So today's session is about developing positive attitudes, something which is very important to have in life in general and of course in our classrooms. So we're going to be thinking about which attitudes it's important to develop in a positive way, and who we should have these positive attitudes towards. So we'll be considering, first of all, what are positive attitudes? We'll be looking at how we can develop those. We'll be talking about the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework, and also, of course, practical activities to help our young learners to develop positive attitudes. So I've I've created a wakelet with all the resources that I will be mentioning in today's webinars. So at the end of the webinar, or towards the end, we'll be sharing a link to this wakelet so that you can access all the resources. So first of all, a question for you. And if you could use the chat, the normal chat here, to answer my questions. So I've got two questions for you. The first one is, who should we have positive attitudes to? And the second question is, what should we have positive attitudes to? Yeah, so who and what should we have positive attitudes to? What do you think? Would you like to type into the chat who and what? So Alexandra, to ourselves and everyone, students, Maya Tithya, everyone, everybody, all kinds. I think that's a very important term, Luis Antonio, all kinds of students and people. Yeah. And what about what? What would you say that what should we have positive attitudes towards? To what is believed to be misbehavior? Okay. Yes, so perhaps we should take positive steps to correct misbehavior, Paula, perhaps. Yes, people's opinions, again, Luis Antonio, good point there. Or our goals and wishes, yes, we should see them as being possible, as reachable. Things that we normally find hard to deal with, yeah, so potential problems that we're going to come across in our lives. Our process in personal development, their learning style, different performances. Oh, I'm loving these, your answers here. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to divide positive attitudes for this webinar into 4 areas. I think you've mentioned them all. Perhaps you didn't mention our planet, okay, but some of the things, the whats you were mentioning, perhaps did fit into our planet. So we should have positive attitudes towards ourselves. You were saying about our goals, our dreams, our ability, our performance, another word which you've put into the chat box. We should also definitely have positive attitudes to the people around us. So in our family, our friends, the people that we share our classrooms with. Very, very important, people from other cultures. I know Brazil is a very popular country for people to visit. I haven't visited it yet, but I do know lots of people who have. They said it's a great place to go, not just because of the beauty, but also especially because of the people, because you're very open and very welcoming. But not everybody is. So it's important, it's something important to develop. And of course, we need to have a positive attitude to our planet and to preserving our planet, our resources. So let's look now at how we can develop positive attitudes. So I'm going to think about these different areas, okay? So in order to have positive attitudes towards ourselves, we need to take care of ourselves. Some of you mentioned dealing with problems. So we need to know how to deal with them, how to cope. Especially younger learners need help probably in identifying and understanding and managing. One of you mentioned misbehavior. So if a young student misbehaves, then perhaps we can help them to not repeat the same reaction or the same actions the next time that this happens, to be able to identify what's happening and how to manage it. Of course, respecting others. In the classroom, we use group activities, pair work. So we need to make sure that those things are working well, because our students have positive attitudes towards each other and each other's participation in group activities. Appreciating cultural diversity, developing real human values, and of course, understanding global issues, challenges that the planet as a whole, the human race as a whole, is facing. So, have you heard of the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework? You may have attended other webinars this week. I'm not sure if this was mentioned, or perhaps you've come across it at other times. So are you familiar with the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework? Okay, and I will just go through it. Okay, so if you're not familiar with the framework, okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. I would definitely recommend you exploring it because it has so many useful applications in our teaching, and also some very practical activities for us to use. Okay, I use it a lot. Okay, I use it as an author. It's something that we have been incorporating into course books in the last, say, 5 years. So when we've been writing materials for young learners, for example, we've been building in work on life competencies into the course book. Kids Box New Generation has also incorporated lots of things from the framework into the new edition. So if you're not familiar with the framework, then there is a dedicated website where you can find all the information and the material. The first place to start, perhaps, is this introduction booklet. Okay, so they're all PDF documents which you can download so that you can read them offline and you've got them. So the first document, if you're not familiar, would be the introduction. So there are 6 life competencies. Here we've got creative thinking, critical thinking, learning to learn, communication, collaboration, and social responsibilities. In addition to these 6 competencies, we also have emotional development, and we have digital competence in addition, okay? But we've got the 6 life competencies which form the base. So in order to achieve, to be able to handle a competency, we need knowledge. We need to know that it exists, what it is. We need skills, to develop skills to do it. And we definitely need attitudes. And those 3 things combined add up to a competency. So a competency is then broken down into different core areas, which are further broken down into components. And then the most useful thing, I think, are these example can-do statements. I'll show you an example of this. So this comes from critical thinking, and it's something that we could develop with primary age students. So in this example, the core area is understanding and analyzing ideas and arguments. And you can see we've got 3 components at primary level for this core area. And we've got these example can-do statements and example language that our students could produce in the classroom. Yeah, so identifying and classifying information. If they've been listening to a story, then they can identify the different characters, where the story has taken place, what the development of the story, and perhaps maybe a theme or a lesson that could be learnt from the story. So they would be an example of a core area, 3 different components, what they actually mean, and finally, what kind of language we could be training students to use. So, as I said, there are the 6 competencies, and then we've also got digital literacy and emotional development. And again, there are brochures for each of these 8 different areas. So I'm going to show you a statement, and I want you to tell me which of the 6 competencies does this statement come from? So where do you think judging whether something is true or false and giving a reason, which competency are we talking about here? We are indeed, I think, talking about critical thinking, aren't we? And this is a very, very important thing to develop in our classrooms. Just yesterday, I was watching a news story on the BBC about artificial intelligence creating videos which appear to be educational, but in fact, they are sharing facts which are not true. And of course, they look very authentic, they look very educational. So kids are believing what they're watching, and in fact, these facts are not true. So it's a very important skill to develop, a competency to develop. What about this one? Reflect on what they did well in a lesson. Which competency are we talking about now? Okay, and Andres and Cynthia, yes, it is learning to learn, okay, and something very important to do, yeah, at the end of the class, or perhaps not the end of a class, perhaps, 2/3 through the class, thinking about what they've done well and what perhaps they haven't done so well and how they could improve that. What about suggesting roles for group members? So you've asked them to work in a group, and either you suggest roles or they can think of who can do what, who can make notes, who can present, who can organize. Yeah. Collaboration demonstrates understanding of the need to share and protect resources. Exactly, it's social responsibilities. And imagines alternative endings to stories. And finally, interrupts others politely. Yes, okay. So you can see some examples of the different core areas of these different competencies. So the learning journey. So the idea is that lifelong learning, okay, these competencies, some of them we will start developing in pre-primary, and we will develop these competencies throughout our lives. There will still be things that we as adults will need to develop and can improve if we need to suddenly do something perhaps new or something different, or do something again that we haven't done for a long time. So again, these documents, if you're not already familiar with the framework, or perhaps you haven't accessed these documents because these came out later than the original framework, you have booklets for these 3 different age groups. And the wonderful, wonderful resource that I refer to a lot, and I'm going to refer to it today in this webinar, are these activity cards. Okay, I'll be showing you some examples. So these are very handy cards I would suggest to have when you're preparing your lessons, or perhaps even in the classroom, you find you've got 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm sure you'd find an activity to do with your students on the cards. So let's look at how we can help young learners to develop these positive attitudes to themselves, to others, to other cultures, and to the planet. Okay, so I'm going to look at an example from Kidsbox New Generation, and it's from level 1. So you can see that at the end of, after every 2 units at this level, we have Trevor's values. And at the bottom of the page, we have 2 things clearly indicated. We have, on the one hand, the language that is being targeted. And you can also see there the symbol from the competencies framework. And we are working here, among other things, as you will see, on social responsibilities. Okay. So this particular part of Kidsbox New Generation starts with a chant. Okay, so the students listen to the chant. I've put the tape script there on the screen, and they listen to the chant and they point to the pictures as they hear them being talked about. So hopefully this will play and you will be able to hear it. And we'll just listen to a little bit of the chant.
Trevor's values. Pupils book, page 91. Keep clean. 1. Listen and point.
Wash, wash, wash apples. Wash, wash, wash apples. Brush, brush, brush your teeth. Brush, brush, brush your teeth. Wash, wash, wash your hands. Wash, wash, wash your hands. Clean, clean, clean your shoes. Clean, clean, clean your shoes.
Okay, so a nice little chant. Okay, so this then comes from the teacher's book. And again, we're working on these social responsibilities. So you discuss with the students why it's important to wash your hands and when, and why it's important, for example, to wash fruit. Okay, and you could do this, if necessary, in the student's own language, okay, because I think it's important that the competency is developed. Okay. Then the suggestion from the teacher's book is to write these words onto the board, and students copy these lines into their notebook, and they write the words in the appropriate column. Yeah, so wash, clean, and brush. Could we vary this? I think we could. What about writing the words on cards? Or students could choose a word and copy it onto their notebooks. And then they put the word into the right column. Okay, so adding a little bit of physical movement here. Or what about give 3 different learners one of the verbs and they stand in different parts of the room. And the others move to the right verb. Another suggestion, and I like this one because sometimes perhaps you can't move them around so much. So what about if we've got the board, we've got 3 areas, everybody stands up. So we've got wash, clean, brush. Everybody stands up. If it's wash, they take 1 step to the left. If it's clean, they stay in the middle. Or if it's brush, they take a step to the right. You could also do this, face the front, turn right, turn left, turn and face the back. I did this very recently in Bogota with a very, very big room of teachers, and I got them to do this, and you don't have to move very much. And it's also very easy to see if students are getting it right. And it's fun. You can do it, you can repeat it and get quicker and quicker and get them to move a little bit. Any other ideas that you have for working on something like this? Okay, so we can copy and write them into their notebooks. They can have them on cards, stick them in the right column. They can move to different areas of the room, or they can take a step left or right. Anything else that you do or that you think you could do with this activity? Run for it, Alexandra. That sounds interesting. What do you mean by run for it? Maybe hold a word up and they have to go and get it or go and touch it, perhaps. Raquel, yes, stand up, sit down. Again, that's a very simple way, but very effective, yeah. And I always try and build a little bit of movement into my young learners' classroom. And depending on how much space you have, the group of students, how easy they are to control, then something as simple as standing up or sit down would be perfect. Okay, what about using mime? So give 3 learners a verb, a different verb, and they mime their action. The other learners choose one of these things from the list, and they move and mime their word together with the verb. And the others might then have to say what they are doing. Luis, yes, the students write the words on the board maybe. That's certainly more interactive, isn't it? And also gets them practicing writing. Okay, another thing I like to do would be to revisit the chant. Okay, so remember we had wash, 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 apples. Wash, 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 apples. And so you could choose, yeah, one of these things from the list, match it to the verb, the correct verb, and say the chant, but by changing the word. Yeah, so could be clean, clean, clean the bathroom. Clean, clean, clean the bathroom. Okay, and you could go round and each learner could say a sentence, or again, a little bit of chaos in the classroom, controlled chaos, I would add, is that everybody says their sentence with one of the words from the list at the same time. Yeah, you could get them to whisper it. So it could be Wash, wash, wash strawberries. Wash, wash, wash strawberries. Wash, wash, wash strawberries. Wash, wash, wash strawberries. So different volumes, sing it. 3 different cards in 3 different places in the classroom. Teacher mentions a word so they can form a phrase, such as strawberries. Then students move to the spot and say the phrase aloud. Yes, I'm washing strawberries, okay, or I'm cleaning strawberries. Okay, so this comes from one of the competencies, okay, and you can see here we've got the core area is generating ideas, generating multiple ideas, and it's producing multiple possibilities for substituting words or lines in a song or poem. And the language, perhaps your instructions will be, let's change it. Okay, and this is working on creativity, yeah, on creative thinking. So again, from the teacher's book, we've got a really nice activity mime game. This is taking in realia, so some toothbrushes, some bars of soap, some apples, 2 shoes, and then some music. And they stand or sit in a circle, and you pass out these objects. And when the music stops, the person who has the object should stand up and act out the action. If they're brushing their teeth, they're washing their hands, washing an apple, cleaning their shoes, and they can mime and ask what they're doing. Relating it to real life. Can you remember during COVID that we were told to wash our hands? How long are we supposed to wash our hands for? Can you remember that? Can you remember any, or I don't know, in Brazil, whether you had any particular songs or music that were suggested for us to make sure that we washed our hands in the best possible way? Yeah. So how long should we wash our hands? Do you know? Would your students know? So in Great Britain, it was to sing happy birthday 2 times. Or at that stage, we had a queen. So it was the national anthem twice as well. No, I think once actually, the national anthem. Yeah. So God save our gracious queen, long live our noble queen was what we were told in the UK. So, and how long should you clean your teeth? Okay, again, there is a recommended time. So talking about these things, relating them to students' real life. Okay, so if you, this is not the only example of taking care of yourself that comes from Kids Box New Generation. So what I've just shown you came from level 1, but you can also see these are other examples of taking care of yourself, which come in different levels. Let's look now at something from Kids Box New Generation level 4. So again, we have these values which appear after every 2 units. And in this case, we are valuing others. So again, we have at the bottom, we have indicated what we're working on. So in the book, it says, look at the photos, what's happening and why. So can you look at the photographs for me and type into the chat what you think is happening and why? Okay, so definitely some kind of celebrations in general, yeah, especially A, C, and D, I think. Alexandra, Maria Leticia, A has just received a gift. Special moments, they're all receiving gifts, Claudia says. Sharing, yes, Julia. Okay, so from these life competency activity cards, I've taken one which works on emotional development. Recognizing and describing emotions. So see, think, feel. So when students see a photograph or an artwork or hear a piece of music or conversation from the course book, get them to think about what they see or what they hear, what it reminds them of, what it makes them think of, and how it makes them feel. And then ask them to share their ideas in groups. So adding to what's happening, yeah, we could add, what do you think of when you look at the photos? How do you feel when you look at the photos? So I think, what do you think of? I think you said, a lot of your comments have said that, receiving gifts, special moments, celebrations, a special occasion, sharing. And how does it make you feel? So Luis, happy moments. Yes, definitely happiness, isn't it? Being shown here. Everybody looks very happy. Yes, so happiness. Shared joy is double joy. Yes, indeed. Yes. Surprises. Okay. So, yeah, definitely A perhaps looks quite surprised. Yeah. Okay. Another activity card, this time working again on social responsibilities. So looking at the photographs, is this the same in Brazil? Okay, is this the same in your family, in your circle of friends? And can you think of any countries where it might be different? Yeah, so are these 4 situations, do you think, the same in Brazil? Or would it be different in some way? Is it the same in your family? And would you see this, for example, B, would you see that in your school? Okay. What about in Japan? Does anybody know anything about Japanese culture? Right, Katya saying, I heard there are cultures where they do not celebrate birthdays. Okay, maybe we could get the kids to find out. Is that true? Yeah. Is that possible that people don't celebrate birthdays? Maybe it is. Okay. I think in Japan, more than wrapping things in, putting things in a box or wrapping things with paper, I think in Japan they very often wrap them in material, yeah, in some kind of material or perhaps a scarf, and it's part of the present. Okay, so finding out about different cultures, okay, and perhaps it would be interesting to have a photo here, find a photo of a different culture where they are sharing and giving, but perhaps it's very different. Okay, yeah, it could well be. Somebody's religion means that they don't celebrate birthdays. And look at this. This also comes after the photos. We've got this exercise, okay? And it's very nice because it's talking about situations where we say thank you and where we share and give. But what grammar is this working on here? Yes, thank you. Thank you, Katia, because perhaps I'm not being clear. So this comes after the photographs. Yeah, we've got different situations where we give things and where we also say thank you. But as well as working on those situations, it's working on a grammar area. What is the grammar area that has been incorporated into this exercise? So I'll give you a clue. I'm going to stress the words. We say thank you to people when we can give someone a present to, when people help us, when we enjoy a school lesson, when we want to say thank you to someone. So it's actually when, clauses with when, these compound clauses, and also the infinitive of person, of infinitive of purpose, not person, purpose. Yeah, so to say thank you to someone, we can sometimes write a letter. I'm going to write them a letter. Yeah, we say thank you to people when they help us. Okay, so these compound clauses with when and the to infinitive of purpose. And then, of course, relating it to students' own lives, own situations, when do you say thank you? And in the teacher's book for Kids Box Newer Generation, there's always suggestions for extra challenge and extra support. Okay, so for an extra challenge, the ideas that students come up with about when they say thank you, they could make a thank you poster to express thank you in that situation. Oops, sorry. So during COVID, actually, I created this kindness calendar. So this is 28 days of being kind to other people and to say thank you, or to show that you care for them and you appreciate them. Yeah, to develop these positive attitudes. So this is one of the things that I've uploaded as a PDF document to the Wakelet. Yeah, so as I wrote this during COVID, when we were all at home, but a lot of us were lucky enough to be with some family members, and thinking about how you could do little things to show your appreciation and your positive attitudes. So, other activities to develop competencies. Learning to learn, yeah? Why are we doing this? Okay, so why are we talking about saying thank you, and when we say thank you? Why are we talking about feelings? Well, maybe to learn to manage our emotions. Why are we talking about people not celebrating birthdays? Well, that's because we need to understand and respect other people's beliefs and attitudes. Okay. So I asked you what the sentences were working on in 3, okay, and I explained that it was when and to plus infinitive. Okay, so again, why are we looking at these sentences? It's to think about the situations, but also to think about the language. Why are we doing this? Communication. So when you speak to different people, you speak in different ways. So thinking about saying thank you to your best friend, to your granddad, to the Queen, to your teacher, to Father Christmas, okay, and adapting your language to different people and different cultures. And after working together, think about how did they work, how well did it go, and who helped, and was it successful? Okay, so again, throughout Kids Box, we have different examples of working on respecting others, okay, and I think very useful things to work on. Understanding global issues. So this is also something that we have in Kids Box New Generation. And here we have an example of reusing and recycling. So they talk about reusing things. So another framework from Cambridge, which is newer than the life competencies framework, is the sustainability framework for ELT. And again, we have activity cards to work on the different areas of the framework from Cambridge. So again, these are downloadable, and I would suggest they're useful things to look at when you're preparing lessons. So in this example, we're talking about what students reuse at home. And we've got paper, we've got bottles, and we've got plastic bags. So very important to try and help them to encourage their families if they're not already recycling and reusing these things. But to think about what stops this happening, okay? So you might get examples of where students don't reuse things at home, but there might be a reason for this. Now, I don't know where you live, whether you have, whether it's easy to recycle. So I have very, very near me, I have normal rubbish and I have bottles. But I have to either walk quite a way, or from time to time, I put it into I'll put all my plastic and all my paper into my car. And when I'm going out shopping or something, I will take it to recycle and put it into the bins. Here in Spain, we also have, we can also recycle cooking oil when it's dirty. But in the UK, for example, when I go there, there isn't that possibility. So I don't know whether in Brazil or whether in your particular area or place where you live, how easy it is for you to recycle. But this can be an obstacle. It can stop people recycling. So having this discussion, I think, is very useful because for lots of reasons. It might encourage our students to reuse and recycle. Also, the future of the world is in our classrooms. So maybe these students can be influential in the future, and they could encourage this, or they could, maybe they've got parents or people who could maybe have a positive influence in this area. And you're saying in Brazil, it depends on the city. I'm sure it does. I also have friends who are a bit skeptical about whether the things we put in, even when we put in the right bin, if they are actually recycled. this is also something which, perhaps it's not, or it's all our hard work doesn't really pay off. I don't know. You do in Porto Alegre. Well, good for Porto Alegre. Then another interesting thing, I think, again, comes from this sustainability framework, understanding the timeline of things, okay? So getting students, again, to think really of the consequences of things they buy, perhaps, okay? So this plastic bottle that you've just drunk your water from, where and how was it made? Who made it? What happened to it after it was made? Did it stay in the same place, or was it shipped somewhere else? Who bought it and where did they buy it from? How long will it be used for? Can you reuse it? And where will it go? What will happen to it when it can't be used anymore? So thinking about these steps in the process, and the idea here is that students would create a timeline, okay, and thinking about the lifespan of products, okay? So thinking about, things, maybe we're learning words for things we buy, for things we put things in, and thinking about, the whole, where they first came from and how long they will last. So, positive attitudes, okay? We've looked at all of these different areas as we've looked at the examples from Kids Box New Generation. And we've also considered the sustainability framework. So now I'm not sure, Katja, if you got the link to the Wakelet.
Yes, I do.
Right.
I'll place it for you.
We're going to put it into the chat, and hopefully you'll be able to follow the link and go to the Wakelet. And if you can just confirm that you can and it does work, the link. If not, obviously we can send it on after the webinar as well. I've added one or two things I haven't mentioned in the webinar because of time. So for example, in the column taking care of yourself, there are some wonderful videos from Peanuts with Charlie Brown and Snoopy. There are some wonderful videos to use with kids for taking care of yourself and respecting others as well. Some wonderful videos there. So I've added a couple of links, as I say, things that maybe I haven't mentioned in the webinar. But I put a link there to the life competencies and also to some blog entries from the Cambridge blog, The World of Better Learning, on the competencies cards, etc. Okay, so and you, yeah, I've also uploaded the kindness calendar that I showed you that I created. Every month, I think I've uploaded this. I share a calendar on my Facebook page, which comes from Action for Happiness, which also has some wonderful ideas. So we're in Self-Care September at the moment. Great. And do we have any questions in the Q&A box?
Not yet. Come on, participants. Don't be shy. I see lots of positive comments on your presentation. Thank you so much, and for all the ideas that you shared.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We have just placed the link for the feedback form. Mm-hmm. And also the certificate. This week, as I mentioned in the beginning, we are having several other webinars, and you brought to your presentation the ELT, the sustainability framework for ELT. We are having a session on it next Thursday.
Right.
So I have just placed in the chat box the dates, the time, and also the link to the enrollment. I think a question popped up here. Maria Leticia is placing a comment saying everything was very well exposed. Congratulations, Annie.
Thank you. Yes, the sustainability framework is very, very interesting. And also Jade Blue, I was just looking at your list there on the 22nd. Jade Blue is actually the author, the creator of the activity cards.
Wonderful.
Yeah, she's great. So I'm sure you'll have a developing learner autonomy in digital learning context. Yes, she's very, very active, Jade. So I'm sure you'll get lots of ideas from her.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's Friday. I know it's end of the week. These are very brave people, these brave teachers here looking for professional development at the end of a very busy and, tiring week. So we thank you very much, Anne, for presenting this very interesting webinar. Hope to have you more often. Please do come and visit Brazil whenever you have some time.
Oh, I would definitely like to do that. I was with Ben Goldstein in Lima and in Bogota, and he'd just been in Brazil not long ago, and he was saying he had a fantastic time. So yeah, definitely on my bucket list.
All right. So we hope to see you around.
Excellent.
Thank you once again. Thank you all participants. Have a good weekend and hope to see you next week in our secondary webinars.
Excellent.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye, Anne.
Bye-bye, everybody. Good night.